Alright, so somebody suggested to me that I should talk about what my OCD has been like. Um, and I think it's definitely a good idea because a lot of my struggle with OCD is that feeling that I'm the only one out there with this type of OCD. I've never come across anyone who has something similar. So that made it really hard for me for years. So maybe by sharing my story, explaining kind of what my OCD is like, it could help someone else if they happen to find this video. That would be really cool. I don't really know where to start because my OCD has been a lifelong thing. So it's kind of a question of like, do I start with what's most recent and what I remember, or do I start from the beginning? I don't really know. But I guess I'll just go ahead and start from the beginning. The beginning's a great place to start. I was just kind of a quirky kid. My parents and family, they didn't really think much of it. The one thing I can remember that I did that kind of screams, oh yeah, she was probably OCD from an early age, is I remember every time I would go to a restaurant. You remember those kids menus where they gave you like crayons to like color with? Man, I wish they would do that for adults, but that's another point. But it would always be like four crayons, and like basically what I would do is I would lay them out. And thinking about it, I probably laid them out specifically in red, yellow, blue, green. I were those That's the order that they go in. I don't know why. I know tech is technically in a rainbow, green should go before blue, but red, yellow, blue, green is the proper order, and I will stake my life on that, but whatever. um and I would put them in a row, and I would take the first crayon and I would color something in red. Then I'd put it at the back, and then I'd color the next thing in yellow, and then I'd put it on the other side, and the next thing in blue, and then put it. I might record a video of this so this makes more sense. I don't know if I have any crayons. I'll find some. But that was like one of the most prominent signs that yeah, this girl is quirky. When I really the first like OCD pattern I developed was with my reading. And as far as this probably started, I guess like close to when I started reading, like somewhere between 4 and 6, whenever I could had a strong enough cognitive processing system, I guess. But it's it was based on the book I was reading and the chapter. Oh gosh, this is so hard to explain. So let's say Magic Tree House, or actually, let's say Junie B. Jones. I love Junie B. Jones. I am Junie B. Jones. Junie B. Jones. There, that's a series of books, right? And so they'd have a number on each book. Oh, this is book number 1. This is book number 2, and they'd also have chapters. So I would always read before going to bed, and whatever chapter I ended on determined in some way how I slept. I actually took notes on this a long time ago when I was trying to explain it to a friend. This started when I was 4 or 6. It lasted to about middle school. I think I stopped in middle school, and I remember trying to explain it to my friend, and I wrote it all down on note cards so it would make sense. I wonder if those are still around or if I threw them away. Like, I never want to see these again. So the series number would impact the category of sleep. So I'm pretty sure, like, if it was book number 1, it would be what I would do with my covers. If it was book number 2, gosh, what was book number 2? I think it was like something about like what I would do to help myself get tired, like something about like listening to like I would always listen to things when I went to sleep, so I think it had to do with what I was listening to. Um Gosh, it's good that I don't remember this, isn't it? But anyways, let's just go with number 1. So, say I'm reading book number 1 of a series, I would read until a certain chapter, and whatever chapter I finished on, that would determine how I used my covers during the night. So 1 would be like, I have to have the covers fully on, and then 2 was like, okay, I have to have the covers fully off. No covers tonight. None for you. And I noticed that my audio just spiked. Dang it. I'm gonna turn this down a bit. So 2 was no covers for you, and 3 I think was like, whatever you want, or whatever. Because I think in the beginning there were only 3 categories, but my categories had to match. I remember that. So there were like 3 major categories and then 3 subcategories for every major category, and or if it was 4, it had to be 4. And so if, say, I was reading book number 1 of a series, and I finished on chapter 1, I would go to sleep, and I would have to have all of my covers on, like full on to the top. I could not have them off. And if I finished on book number 2, I'd have to have all of them off. No matter how cold, no matter how annoying, I had to have all of them off. That was fun. That was a lot of... I hated 2. 2, I determined, was the bad category, and 3 was the good category. I'm not sure why categorically that made sense to me, but it's what made sense to me. But ultimately, I think it got up to 7 categories by the time, maybe 8, by the time I was in middle school. And, and obviously there were more than 7 chapters in a book, or more than 7 books in a series. So if I ended at like 8, I would go back to the beginning, and that would be 1 when I had 7 categories, and then 9 would be 2, and 10 would be 3, and so on and so forth. There's a little math involved there, but ultimately it determined how, or at least some sort of way that I would go to sleep every night. And I think whatever the last category was, that was all of them. So if it was like category 8, if there was a category 8, that would have been like my covers, what I do to make myself sleepy. I know one of them was like how fast the fan's going. So that would be all of them all at once. So if it was like I'm reading book series 8 and I get number 2, it's like, no, my life sucks. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And it was just kind of something weird and quirky and casual that I sometimes lost sleep over, but it really didn't completely dominate my life at that point, I guess. When it really started dominating my life was probably around middle school.